Eastern Horn of Africa Human Rights Defenders Project, such a long name, comes up a thematic and geographical location combined together. Geography is the Eastern Horn, that's our coverage of area, and then thematic human rights defenders. Our mandate mainly focuses on three aspects. The first one is provide a quality protection, a quick protection for human rights defenders at risk, both preventive and also reactive protection, I'm talking about in this case.
Eastern Horn provides both preventive and reactive responses to human rights defenders at risk. On preventive side, we carry out trainings to equip human rights defenders with security management tools, both physical and digital security management tools. Now our focus is in Burundi, where we have been having an increase of requests for protection. We have flown in some defenders from Burundi into Uganda for a training in physical security management. And yesterday we carried out, we had a kind of theoretical part of the training on how to manage a studio in a secure way. And we are heading to a studio where we are going to learn practically how to manage a music studio. The participants of this current training are members of the Lion Story Group, a music band that sings human rights songs, peace, and reconciliation in Burundi.
On est inspiré par la vie en composant nos chansons pour dire ce qui est en train de se passer maintenant au Burundi, ce qui est en train de se passer à nous. Tout cela, ça nous inspire. Maintenant, le Burundi, et la situation est vraiment très pire. C'est une mauvaise situation. Il y a des gens qui sont en train d'être tués, des gens qui sont en train d'être emprisonnés injustement. La force que nous apportons, c'est la musique, c'est le message à travers la musique. Sensibiliser les gens en rapport avec leurs droits et devoirs. Ça veut dire tous ces sujets-là que beaucoup de gens ont peur d'aborder, de parler dans la musique. Et tous ces sujets-là qui touchent sur la vie commune de beaucoup de gens, on les aborde dans nos chansons. Donc, si tu parles des choses pour éveiller la conscience des gens, de la population surtout, il y a les politiciens, quelquefois les dirigeants, ne peuvent pas vous voir de bon œil. Donc, nous, on a été menacés de mort. Il y a même des actes qui nous ont été infligés pour nous faire taire, pour faire taire notre message. Mais malgré tout cela, on continue. Parce que nous sommes parmi ces gens-là qui veulent le changement positif.
We believe that a human rights defender will always talk about issues that the perpetrators of violence will not want to speak about, and the very nature of human rights work will eventually lead to a human rights defender being at risk. So to preempt the negative impacts of a risk that a human rights defender could potentially be faced with, we train them in security management from the beginning, and we encourage them and support them to put in place protocols to manage their security. For example, if you're working in Burundi right now, that is very volatile, and situation of armed conflict starts, you would put in place measures to limit the impact on yourself as a human rights defender, but oftentimes you cannot completely do away with risk, and that's where we come in to help the human rights defender either leave the country for their own security or move within the country to a place that is safe for them to stay. The protection program works with human rights defenders who are at risk resulting from their human rights work. The support extended to human rights defenders is varied and is aimed at addressing the individual needs of a human rights defender. It could be medical support, it could be rendering legal advice, it could be evacuation or relocation, or support with the family of the human rights defender at risk. And they have to be supported to overcome the risk with the long-term aim of them continuing with their human rights work. Under the physical security management and the protection program, we usually work under tremendous pressure because the cases that we are handling are people who are actually in danger and need to be supported as quickly as possible. One of the most difficult cases was when a parent who had been evacuated out of the country to another country because it was just so difficult for him to stay, got a call and was told that your son was beaten by two men while he was on a playground. The boy got injuries in his abdomen and he had to be rushed to hospital. Eventually he was taken out of the country through clandestine means because he was denied travel documents. The perpetrators knew that he was going to join the parent out of the country, and so they denied him travel documents. But luckily enough, they managed to get him through out of the country, and he has since joined the father. So that's one very success story.
Eastern Hand, avant tout, je dirais tout d'abord merci à eux parce que c'est aussi des défenseurs des droits de l'homme. Et ils nous appuient beaucoup, par des conseils, par tout. Ils nous appuient vraiment. Ils nous ont toujours été à côté. Ils nous appuient par des conseils, par même des moyens financiers. Dans la situation d'urgence, Eastern Horn nous a beaucoup assisté. Il nous a assisté matériellement et moralement aussi. Si ce réseau-là n'existait pas, il y a des gens qui se seraient déjà dégonflés, qui auraient déjà laissé tomber. Cette organisation, je ne dirais pas que c'est nous qui l'avons trouvée. Peut-être c'est elle qui nous a trouvés. Et c'est très bien, vraiment. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui nous assistent dans ce domaine-là. Mais Eastern Horn a été le premier et le grand.
Smile on his face alone is brilliant. It helps, it in a way, it shows that, whatever you're doing is making a difference. It takes time for human rights defenders who've been tortured, who've gone through psychological difficulties to overcome that. But when you see that happening, it's very progressive in nature. And when the day comes when the human rights defender comes and gives you a hug and smiles and greets you, it's a high five, how are you? It's so different. It's a smile on somebody's face.
The second is our advocacy and research department, which amplifies the voices of human rights activists whenever they are at risk, when they need their voice to be heard, those important international and regional human rights institutions.
Our organization, whose mandate includes Eritrea, is deeply concerned by the ongoing widespread and systematic human rights violations that have resulted in thousands of Eritreans fleeing the country for a safe environment in neighboring countries and further afield. We are distressed by the restrictions to the freedom of expression and opinion and of peaceful assembly and association, the impact of which has been heavily felt by the press freedom workers. No independent media exists in the country, and the government silence journalists through detention and torture. Eritrea should respect regional and international human rights standards and should be open for the Human Rights Council mandated communications in the country.
We shall now continue our interactive dialogue with the Commission of Inquiry to investigate all alleged human rights violations in Eritrea.
I take away memories or images of Hassan and his colleagues when they come to the council. They are there, they're present, they're active, they're engaged in the agenda. The project at the council, the Human Rights Council, has always been immensely influential. Some of the major advocacy outcomes that relate to this region have come as a direct result of the advocacy work that they have done in regard to contact with diplomats in Geneva and connecting contacts with state representatives in the region has resulted in some really remarkable outcomes, including the establishment of the Special Rapporteur in Eritrea, which occurred really as a result of the advocacy efforts of the network and other civil society allies.
Eastern Horn brings the Sub-Sahara voice to the Human Rights Council. No other organization does systematically and consistently engage in acknowledged pressure to the Human Rights Council from Sub-Saharan Africa. Human Rights Council, Eastern Horn, goes all sessions, participate the Human Rights Council Network, which is a house of global human rights organizations and regional human rights institutions coming together in order to strengthen the Human Rights Council protection mechanism for human rights globally.
engaging at the regional and international level in a way is a protection mechanism, because these states know that they are being watched, and human rights defenders get to voice their challenges at a bigger platform. We supported a South Sudanese human rights defender, and who actually happened to be the only defender in Geneva at that time from South Sudan. And it was important that she was there because she was able to tell the story as it is on the ground, to explain to the rest of the world what exactly is happening in Sudan. And the fact that she was a woman also, she was able to tell the other side, the challenges that are affecting women and children.
We bring unwanted voices to the council, where at the national level they may not be heard, and at the council it becomes a forum to raise the profile and the feasibility of human rights defenders, particularly those who are at the margins. Persons defending the rights of the LGBTI, women human rights defenders, those who defend the rights of activists working in resource extraction area, those who defend the rights of activists who are working in a situation of armed conflict. So combination of those people, we try to raise their voices at a level where they could never ever imagine to reach.
The most worrying thing is surveillance. A part of the usual forms of threats and harassment that they face currently. What is striking in all the consultation, but also in Africa, is that surveillance is the most worrying. They know that the computers are being taped, although they try to protect the computers, and some organizations like Eastern Horn of Africa are doing a lot in training, in security training for the computers and telephone. But nonetheless, governments are smart, and they do know how to overlap the forms of protection.
The Eastern Horn of Africa is increasingly a technological place. Internet penetration in Uganda increased by 17% in the last year alone. So the region we're working in has explosive growth in connectivity and usage of internet. People are using mobile phones to communicate, they're using them to do their work, to edit documents, to communicate with donors, and even to send messages to international mechanisms such as special rapporteurs on human rights. So we need to protect these endpoints and the ways of communication. It can put themselves at risk, it can put their sources or their communities at risk. And they store this information on their computers, they communicate it through their phones. And these are all the points of risk, the point of weakness, where that human rights defender might become compromised. So what we do in our trainings is facilitate these activists to understand the tools of how to protect this information, how to encrypt it on their computers, how to encrypt it on their phones, and how to communicate it securely so that a physical threat against them, such as a theft of a computer or a physical attack, won't disclose their information, but also a digital attack, such as a compromise of their accounts or a surveillance of their internet communications, won't also disclose such sensitive information.
Je me souviens quand j'étais encore à Bujumbura, il y avait une hyper panique sur toute la capitale du Burundi, Bujumbura. C'est la raison qui m'a poussé de quitter difficilement notre pays, parce qu'à la frontière, on devrait faire une fouille, voir même dans tout ce que nous avons dans nos téléphones, dans nos ordinateurs portables. Donc on devrait se cacher pour qu'on puisse quitter le pays. Et ça se fait même aussi aujourd'hui pour les défenseurs qui se cachent au Burundi.
The difficult thing in this field of work is to separate the politically motivated attacks against a human rights defender in the digital realm versus the threats that any user of the internet would face. And so in response to this, we train on all issues of online safety. So the same issues that your grandmother or your classmates might face are the same issues that a human rights defender would face. But a human rights defender might also be targeted based on their work, and we teach human rights defenders to differentiate between an email which is designed to steal money from them versus an email which is designed to steal information or documents from them. To make some communication, and we're going to see which ones can be read or intercepted and which ones can't be. Celeste, you are going to make a text message, but we also have spies. Now, Mr. Spy, you want to find the messages being passed between Celeste and Janvier. Where do you go? Okay, now what do you do?
Mon ordinateur était protégé quand j'ai subi cette fouille à la frontière. Mon portable était aussi protégé. Comme je suis formateur en sécurité numérique, j'ai tout protégé, j'ai tout bloqué. Raison pour laquelle même il était difficile pour les gens qui fouillaient de parvenir à accéder à mes applications. Cela a été dit, bien sûr, à différentes formations que j'ai subies de la part de l'Eastern Horn, aussi d'autres partenaires du FOCODE. Ça permet aux défenseurs des droits humains de protéger, de savoir certaines notions sur la sécurité numérique, en fait de se protéger dans des cas qui peuvent les entraîner dans de mauvaises conditions.
Then we have another department of capacity building department, program and capacities. That's where actions related to combination of programs and proposals is being taken place, managing human resources, and as well as organizing training meetings. So those four departments interplay to make one life of human rights defender better off than before on a daily basis.
The Eastern Horn had already recognized the challenge in Kenya and had already organized a meeting just 1 month before the election took place, a meeting for human rights defenders, whereby people had mapped those concerns, the risks that were likely to face post-election. And indeed, one of the main recommendations was to establish a local mechanism for defenders, which is called the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. The National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders in Kenya was indeed the first network that was established by the Eastern Horn.
The beauty of the way Eastern Horn is set up is we have partners at national level who have spread out to the community levels further away from the capitals of the countries. So we make sure that we utilize these avenues to make it known about the availability of security management training, physical security and digital security, as well as the protection support should anything happen. So we don't want human rights defenders to be left in a limbo when they are facing difficulties. The reason the program was set up is to support human rights defenders, and that's why we make sure that it's known to them that this system is available. This has its limitations. Not everybody knows about the protection support available for them at Eastern Horn, which we try as much as possible to overcome by dissemination of information. And that's where the national coalitions are really key in our work, because without them, we are not able to reach the community-based human rights defenders, who are the most vulnerable human rights defenders in any particular country.
Everyone in Tanzania nowadays, the media, some of the state officials are now talking about human rights defenders. We are actually glad that it was just because of Eastern Horn of Africa that today Tanzania speaks about human rights defenders. That today as a Tanzania, we are proud that we have a very vibrant and active coalition of human rights defenders that protect and defend human rights defenders in Tanzania. And the Eastern Horn is still with us, especially on referral cases, whereby we have some of the cases as a coalition on our own we cannot support. So those are the cases which we refer to Eastern Horn of Africa to seek support in whatever way, being a legal support, a medical support, or any other kind of support like reallocation from one country to another.
The Kenyan coalition refers cases to Eastern Horn for two reasons. One, Eastern Horn has been in existence longer than the coalition, so they have the experience, they have the resources, and they are able to respond faster than any of us. Two, when they are doing an analysis of the state of human rights defenders, they do it at a regional level. We only do it at a Kenyan level. And therefore, if I get a case from Sudan, for instance, I might have read what is happening in Sudan, but not with the lens of human rights defenders, which is what Eastern Horn will have done. And finally, we consider Eastern Horn as the mother organization. It has given birth to the Kenyan coalition, to the Tanzania coalition, Uganda coalition, Somali, Burundi, all the coalitions within the region.
We're really hoping that we can strengthen the concept of national coalitions, which we've been encouraging in different countries. Right now, we can confidently say that we have very independent and successful coalitions, especially in Tanzania and Kenya, that have been able to do this exact same work that we do here, but at the national level. So we're hoping that in the coming years, we'll be able to strengthen the existing coalitions and also establish coalitions in countries that don't have coalitions already. So we're really looking at the concept of national coalitions as one of the most sustainable solutions that we'll have to take us to where we want to be. If organizations are able to provide their own protection mechanisms at the national level, then that will take us quite a bit in terms of the number of people that will actually receive assistance and also the number of people that will be able to put in mechanisms in place at the local level.
Our inspiration goes beyond this sub-region now. We want this continent, every part of it, activists, saved, equipped, trained, and their voices heard. So we want to replicate the achievement we have made over the past 10 years from this part of the continent to make it reality to the other part of the continent. We want to redouble our efforts to say no to violations against human rights activists in this sub-region as well. Countries where we work will have a better future than before, simply because there are a number of unstoppable opportunities which are emerging where the African societies want to demand a dignity. They will demand a better governance, and activists will have a strong allies to work along with them. Therefore, those things are happening, negatives are happening, but the positives are much more than the negatives. And in sum total, the freedom of thought, of expression, of assembly, and association will make this sub-region one of the most open societies in the world.